Shalom. Blessings. Um, I think I was in Galatians. We're gonna finish this Abraham, right? Galatians 3:16. It says, "Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He saith not, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, singular, which is Christ." All right, period. Well, that was Galatians 3:16. This is part 2 on Abraham. We're going to talk about the Most High never required the children of Israel to uh, require sacrifice, period. All right. So, back in Josephus, book 1, chapter 13, paragraph 3, it says, "He foretold also that his family should increase into many nations, and that those patriarchs should leave behind them an everlasting name, that they should obtain the possession of the land of Canaan, and be envied by all men. When the Most High had said this, he produced to them a ram, which did not appear before for the sacrifice. So Abraham and Isaac, receiving each other unexpectedly, and having obtained the promises of such great blessings, embraced one another. And when they had sacrificed, they returned to Sarah and lived happily together. The Most High allowed them his help in all things, his assistance in all things that they desired. All right. So again, in the singular, um, uh, that in his promise of all nations being happy in the seed, the child of Abraham, the children of Isaac, and the child of Jacob. It was always used in the singular. All right. And, and Christ come from them as well. All right. By the son of Abram, by the son of David, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right. Now, uh, now I had something held and I'm just forgetting. I forget. Um, you want to see? Um, let's see this parallel blessing. Actually, the Most High's parallel blessing to Jacob. Let's see that. It's in book 1, 19, and 1. So let's get that real quick. And we're going to get on a little bit on it. Let's get that. 19 and 1. Now Jacob was sent by his mother to Mesopotamia in order to marry Laban, her brother's daughter, which marriage was permitted by Isaac on account of his obsequiousness to the desire of his wife. And he accordingly journeyed through the land of Canaan. And because he hated the people of that country, he would not sleep with any of them, but took up his lodging in the open air, and laid his head on a heap of stones that he had gathered together. This is what Jacob did. At which time he saw in his sleep such a vision, He saw in his sleep a vision, a dream. Standing by him, he seemed to see a ladder. This is what Jacob seen, that reached from earth to heaven, to the sky, and people descending upon the ladder that seemed more excellent than human. And at last, the Most High himself stood above it and was plainly visible to him, who, calling him by his name, spake to him these words: O Jacob, Israel, O Jacob, it is not fit for you, who art the son of a good father and grandson of one who had obtained a great reputation for his eminent virtue, to be dejected, depressed at your present circumstance, but to hope for better times. For you shall have great abundance of all good things by my assistance, by my aid, help. For I brought Abraham hither out of Mesopotamia, when he was driven away by his kinsmen, his family, and I made your father a happy man. Nor will I bestow a lesser degree of happiness on thyself. He made Isaac a happy man as well. Be of good courage, Jacob. Therefore, and under my conduct, proceed on this your journey. For the marriage you goest so zealously about shall be consummated, and you shall have children of good characters. But their multitude shall be innumerable, uncountable, and they shall leave what they have to a still more numerous, uncountable posterity, to whom and to whose posterity I give the dominion, I give rulership of all the land, and their posterity, their children, shall fill the entire earth, Israel, and see, Israel, so far as the sun beholds them, can see them. But do not you fear any danger, Israel, nor be afraid of the many labors, works you must undergo, Jacob. For by my providence, by my care and ruach, I will direct you what you are to do in the time present, currently, and still much more further in the time to come, in the future. And I'm going to leave it right. No, I'm going to keep going. Such were the predictions, the prophesying, which it says God, Elohim, made to Jacob, Israel. Whereupon he became very joyful. He went from depressed to happy at what he had seen and heard. And he poured oil on the stones because of them, the prediction of such great benefits was made. He also vowed a vow, he made a promise that he should offer gifts, it says sacrifice, upon them with prayer and worship. If he not worship the stones, but pray and worship to the Most High. If he lived and returned safe, if he survived and came back safe, and if he came again in such a condition, in such a way, he would give the tithe of what he had gotten to Elohim, the Most High, Ahia. He also judged the place to be honorable and gave it the name of Bethel, which in the Greek is interpreted the house of Elohim, the house of God. All right. I thought that was good, so I wanted to bring that in there. Then I'm going to bring this in here so you know that he runs into Laban, and he meets Rebecca. Some beautiful stuff in the Josephus about this stuff. And I want to start here. I'm gonna start in paragraph 5. It says, "Then Jacob gave him an account of the whole occasion of his journey, why he was on his journey to Laban, and told him that Isaac had two sons that were twins himself, and Esau, who, because he failed of his father's prayers, which by his mother's wisdom were put up for him, sought to kill him as deprived of the kingdom, removed of the kingdom. And we're going to read the note. He was deprived of the kingdom. It says, by this deprivation of the kingdom that was to be given Esau of the Most High, the Elohim, as the firstborn, it appears that Josephus thought that a kingdom to be derived of the Most High was due to him, to Esau, to Esau, whom Isaac should bless as his firstborn, which I take to be that kingdom which was expected under the Messiah. He was deprived from the kingdom that's going to be under the Messiah, Christ, who therefore was to be born of his posterity, whom Isaac should so bless. Jacob, therefore, by obtaining this blessing of the firstborn, became the genuine heir. The true heir is Jacob of that kingdom, in opposition to Esau. All right, so let's read it again. So Jacob is telling, Laban, I'm on the run, and then he lets him know. He says, let's see. He says, but a little while afterward, Laban told him that he could not express in words the joy he had at his coming, but still he inquired of him the event, the reason, the occasion of his coming, and why he left his aged mother and father when they wanted to be taken care of by him, and that he would afford him all the assistance he wanted, anything that he needed. Then Jacob, Israel, gave him an account of the whole occasion of his journey, the reason why he's on his journey, and told him that Isaac had two sons that were twins, himself, Jacob, and Esau, his brother, who, because he failed of his father's prayers, which by his mother's wisdom were put up for him, sought to kill him, Jacob, as deprived of the kingdom, because Esau knew he was removed from the kingdom, which was to be given him of the Most High, Yah, and of the blessings for which their father prayed, and that this was the occasion, this was the reason of his coming here, as his mother had commanded him to do. For we are all, says he, brethren, one to another, but our mother esteems an alliance with your family more than she does one with the families of the country. So I look upon yourself and the Most High to be the supporters of my travels, and I think myself safe in my present circumstance. That's what he said to Laban. Remember, they didn't want him to marry from the other families. We're supposed to marry close to kin and all of those things. Okay. So this was chapter 19 concerning Jacob's flight into Mesopotamia by reason of the fear he was in of his brother. Right? So that shows you something else in that note. It says, by this deprivation of the kingdom that was to be given to Esau of the Most High as the firstborn, it appears that Joseph thought that a kingdom to be derived of the Most High. Josephus thought that a kingdom to be derived coming of the Most High was due to him, Esau, whom Isaac should bless as his firstborn, which I take to be that kingdom which was expected under the Messiah. So previously they knew that the kingdom was going to come through the Messiah. It was going to come through Abraham. All right. And this was known uh, pre-flood and before and after the flood. All right. This was known. Um, and so Esau is upset. And that's why we have, war going on with our brother. Okay. So now let's get into what I want to get into. And I think that'll be enough there. You can go read it for yourself. Uh, you can continue reading for yourself. No, let me read a little bit more. It says, now Laban promised to treat him with great humanity, both on account of his ancestors and particularly for the sake of his mother, because Laban loved his mother. Um, Towards whom he said he would show his kindness, even though she were absent, by taking care of him. For he assured him he would make him the head shepherd of his flock and give him authority sufficient for that purpose. And when he should have a mind to return to his parents, he would send him back with presents, and this in as honorable a manner as the nearest of their relations should require. This Jacob heard gladly and said he would willingly and with pleasure undergo any sorts of pains while he tarried with him. But Jacob desired Rachel to wife as the reward of those pains, who was not only on other accounts esteemed by him, but also because she was the means of his coming to him, because he was looking for his wife. For he said he was forced by the love of the damsel to make this proposal. All right. And Laban accepted and he was happy. All right. Then, Jacob got duped. But in our culture, the firstborn was supposed to be married first. And that's interesting because the firstborn, like I said, was supposed to receive, Esau was supposed to receive what he was going to receive, but that didn't happen. Just like it happened to Reuben. Right? But you do wrong and you give up your birthright and you done messed up. All right? All right. So now, I hope all this is going to be edifying. I'm all over the place, but it should be edifying. Okay. Um. Okay. So I'm in the appendix of Josephus, the dissertation 2. I'm going to read that headline. It says, concerning God's command to Abraham to offer up Isaac, his son, for a sacrifice. All right. Okay. And this is Abraham's test. All right. And I'm gonna start. That doesn't have a. I'm on page 991 and paragraph 3. It says, "In Abraham's seed all nations of the earth shall be blessed," was never promised till this time. It had been twice promised him. Genesis 12:3, Genesis 18:18. That in himself shall all the families of the earth be blessed, but that this blessing was to belong to future times and to be bestowed by the means of one of his late posterity, the Messiah, right? Yeshua, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, my Savior, the great son and seed of Abraham only, and was never revealed before. It was never shown before. But on such an amazing instance of his faith and obedience as was this his readiness to offer up his only begotten son Isaac, and was now first promised, and has been long ago performed in the birth of Yeshua of Nazareth, the son of David, from the root of Jesse, the son of Abram, Matthew 1:1, which highly deserves our observation in this place, nor can we suppose that anything else can than clear conviction that this command came from the Most High, and could induce so good a man and so tender a father as Abram was to sacrifice his own beloved son, and to lose thereby all the comfort he received from him at current time, and all the expectation he had of a numerous and happy posterity from him later. That long before the days of Abram, the demons or heathen gods had required and received human sacrifices. I'm going to read that again. That long before the days of Abram, the demons and or heathen gods, elves, had required and received human sacrifice. Babies, men, women, children, and particularly that of the offerings of offerers of own children. And this both before and after the deluge. Before and after the flood, they were sacrificing, they were doing blood sacrifices, humans. The Mayans did it, the Incas did it, and the Aztecs. Right? This practice had been indeed so long left off in Egypt, and the custom of sacrificing animals there was confined to so few kinds in the days of Herodotus, that he would not believe they had ever offered human sacrifices at all. For he says that the fable, as if Hercules was sacrificed to Jupiter in Egypt, was feigned by the Greeks, who were entirely familiar with the nature of the Egyptians and their laws. For how should they sacrifice men, with whom it is unlawful to sacrifice any brute beasts, boars and bulls, and pure calves and ganders, only expected? But they were sacrificing humans. However, it is evident, there is proof from Sanchonito and Manetho, Pausanias and Diodorus and Succulus and Philo and Plutarch and Porphyry, that such sacrifices were frequent both in Phoenicia and in Egypt Mizraim, and that long before the days of Abram and Sir John Marsham and Bishop Cumberland have fully proved, they showed evidence how that in other places, though not in Egypt, this cruel practice continued long after Abraham, and this till the very third, if not also the 5th century of Christianity, before it was quite abolished, removed. Take the words of the original authors in English, as most of them occur in their originals. In Sir John Marsham's Chronicon, page 76, 78, and 300 to 304. Listen, Cronus offered up his only begotten son as a burnt offering to his father Uranus when there was a famine and a pestilence. When there was a famine and a pestilence, uh, um, they did a sacrifice. Okay. Cronus, whom the Phoenicians named Israel, and who was after his death consecrated into the star Saturn, when he was king of the country, and had by a nymph of that country named Anarbert an only begotten son, whom on the record account they called Judah, Jeud, Jude. The Phoenicians to this day calling an only begotten son by that name. He, in his dread of very great dangers that lay upon the country from war, adorned his son. He dressed his son with royal apparel, clothing, and built an altar and offered him in sacrifice. All right. The Phoenicians, when they were in great dangers by war, by famine, no food, or by pestilence, disease, sacrifice, they did what? They killed or delivered to Saturn one of the dearest of their people, whom they chose by public suffrage for that purpose, right? To stop the famine, the war, and the pestilence. They killed babies. They killed man, women, and child, like they did currently, this administration did currently with the V19 shot. And Xanthios Phoenician history is full of such sacrifices. These here too I take to have been before the flood. In Arabia, the Damatia sacrificed a child every year. They killed a baby. They relate that of old the Egyptian, it says kings, pharaohs, sacrificed such men as were of the same color with Typho at the sepulchre, the tomb of Osiris. Manetho, Egyptian historian, relates that they burnt Typhonian men alive in the city of Idithia or Lithia, and scattered their ashes like chaff that is renowned. And this was done publicly and at an appointed season time in the dog days. In the dog days, you would have to go to Plutarch, page 78, and you'll find that. The barbarous nations did a long time admit of the slaughter of children as of a holy practice. That was not holy practice. That was a wicked and demonic practice, and acceptable to the gods. The little L's. And this thing, both private persons and kings, pharaohs, and entire nations, countries, and peoples practice at proper seasons. They do it at a certain time. The human sacrifices that were enjoined by the Dandian oracle mentioned in Pausanias, Archias, in the tragic story of Corsus and Caloriho, sufficiently intimate that the Phoenicians and Egyptian priests had set up this Danadine oracle before the time of Omos, that's an Egyptian pharaoh, who destroyed that barbarous practice in Egypt. There's another reference. It says, he from the gods this dreadful answer brought, O Grecians, that when the Trojan shores you sought, your passage with the virgin's blood was brought, you must your safe return be brought again, and Grecian blood once more atone the main. That was from Dryden. That was a quote from Dryden. Now, let's get to this blood sacrifice. These bloody sacrifices were, for a certain, an instance of the greatest degree of impiety, reproach, disrespect, tyranny, and cruelty in the world. It was the most disrespectful thing in the world that either wicked demons or wicked men who neither made nor preserved mankind, protected mankind, who had therefore no right over them, nor were they able to make them amends in the next world for what they did lose, what they thus lost or suffered in this world, should after so inhumane a manner command the taking away the lives of men, and particularly of the offerers of their own children, without the commission of any crime. This was, I think, an abomination derived that came from him who was the murderer from the beginning. John 8:44. A crime truly and properly diabolical, correct? So, um, that accordingly Almighty the Most High himself, under the Jewish dispensation of time, vehemently condemned. He hated the pagans and what the pagans practice, and sometimes the Jews themselves, what they practice, for this crime. And for this, among other heinous sins, he threw the idolatrous nations out of Palestine, and the Jews too out of Palestine. Take the principal texts here and relating as they lie in order in the Old Testament. So let's see how they lie, right? You shall not let any of your seed, children, pass through the fire to Moloch. Defile not yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I throw out before you. This is the reason why this is one reason why I throw them out before you, Israel. Don't do it. Leviticus 18 and 21. Whosoever be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers, the foreigners, that live in Israel, that give any of his seed, his child, unto Moloch, his baby, unto Moloch, he shall surely be put to death. Yeah, he should surely be killed. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I wonder that's in modern day. Any of his seed, if anybody sacrifice any of his child or babies unto Moloch, he shall surely be put to death. We can't do that, but these rappers be put to death with these contracts. Wonder how that's happening. Huh? They're getting put to death. The people of the land shall stone them with stones. Shoot them with bullets or something. Who knows? Leviticus 20 and 2. Take heed to yourself that you be not snared, trapped by the following the nations, Israel, after that they be destroyed from before you, and that you inquire not after their gods. Don't inquire after their LLs, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Who cares how they serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. You shall not do so unto the Lord your power. For every abomination of the Most High, which he hateth, have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and their daughters have they burnt in the fire to their powers, to their little gods. Deuteronomy 12:30 to 31, and see Deuteronomy 18 to 10. And you can go to 2 Kings 17 and 17. We did this stuff. And Ahaz made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. 2 Kings 16 and 3. However, Ahaz burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children. He burnt his what? His children. In the Josephus it says his son, in the fire after abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord had thrown out before the children of Israel. Go to 2 Chronicles 28 and 3. And the Sepharvites burned their children in the fire to Adrimelech, and Amalek, the gods of Sepharvaim. 2 Kings 17:31. And Josiah defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or daughter to pass through the fire unto Moloch. 2 Kings 23 and 10. Yeah, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto demons, unto Beliar, unto Mastema, unto Azazel, unto Moloch, unto Baal. All right, Satan. and shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed, they killed unto the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. So the land was filled with blood. Psalms 106, 37 to 38, and see Isaiah 57, verse 5. The children of Judah have done evil in my eyes, said the Most High, Ahiah. They have set their abominations in the house, which is called by my name, to pollute it, to defile it, and they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire which I commanded them not. He said, I didn't demand them to do that, nor came it into my heart, his spirit, his mind, his soul. Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 30 to 32. Now saith the Lord of hosts, the Lord of war, armies, the God of Israel, the Elohim. Behold, I will bring evil upon this place, the which whosoever heareth, when you hear about this, your ears shall tingle, because they have forsaken me. They left me and have estranged this place, left this place, and have burnt incense unto other powers, whom neither they nor their fathers have known, serving other gods that they don't even know, nor the kings of Judah, and have filled this place with the blood of innocent. They have built also the high places of Baal, to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, Satan, which I command not, nor spake it. He never said it, neither came it into my mind, his heart. Jeremiah chapter 19, verses 3 to 5. They built the high places of Baal. They built the high places of Satan, which were in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Moloch, which I commanded them not. Neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. They caused Judah to sin by setting up abortion. However, you have spoken thy sons and your daughters, whom you have borne unto me, and these have sacrificed unto them that be devoured. Is this of your hoard? Is this of thy whoredoms a small matter? Is this a little matter? That you have slain my children, that you killed my innocent babies or children, and delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them? Ezekiel 16:20 to 21. See also Ezekiel 20:26 and verse 1. And 26. And then First Chronicles 10 to 20. You hatest the old habitations of your holy land, for doing most odious works, deeds of witchcraft, and wicked sacrifices, and also those merciless murderers of children, abortion, child sacrificial ritual, and devourers of man's flesh, those that eat man's flesh, cannibals, and feasts of blood with their priests out of the midst of their idolatrous crew, and the parents that killed with their own hands souls destitute of help, little babies that have no help or no hope. They killed them. They didn't even commit a sin. At least in the scriptures, when our children went off, the Most High was like, "Yo, get them, stone them." But these people are killing their children, and they ain't even committed any sin or crime against them. Okay, Wisdom of Solomon 12, verse 4 to 6. That Almighty God, El Shaddai, the Most High, never permitted in any one instance, any time, that such a human sacrifice should actually be offered. given up to himself, though he had a right to have required it, even if he required it, asked of it, but he never did. If he had so pleased, under the whole Jewish dispensation time, which yet was full of many other kinds of sacrifices, and this a time when mankind generally thought such sacrifices of the greatest virtue for the procuring forgiveness of sin and divine favor. This, the ancient records of the heathen world proves that they thought sacrificing babies and children could give them forgiveness of sin and divine favor through times of war, pestilence, and famine. But God in the Most High is afflicting them for them to repent, but they doing even more wickedness. In the word, take their notion in the word of Philo, Biblos, the translator of Sanchontio. It was the custom of the ancients in the greatest calamities, disasters, or ruins, and dangers, climate change, for the governors of the city or a nation, in order to avert the destruction of all, to devote their beloved son to be killed as a price of redemption to the punishing or avenging demons, and those so devoted were killed after a mystical manner. This is the history of the king of Moab, 2 Kings 3:27. When he was in great distress, this King Moab, in his war against Israel and Judah, informs us of who then took his eldest son that should have ruled in his place and offered him, that means sacrificed him for a burnt offering upon the city wall. They killed him, they burnt him upon the city wall. This also the Jewish prophet Micah 6, chapter 6, verse 6 to 8 implies when he inquires, he asks, wherewith he asked before the Most High power. Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with gifts, with calves of a year old? He's asking the question, will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams and 10,000s of fat kids of the goats? Shall I give my firstborn, my child, for my transgression, for my sin, for my lawbreaking, the fruit of my body, for the sin of my soul? No, certainly. For he hath showed you, O man, what is good, and what doeth the Most High require of you, but to do rightly, and to love mercy, and to humble thyself, to walk with your Elohim, who is the Most High, Yah, Ahaya. It is true, Ahaya did here try the faith and obedience of Abraham to himself, right? Because he gave him free will. He gave us free will. He trying the obedience of Abraham to himself. Whether they were as strong as the pagans and exhibited to their demons or idols, still did he withal take effectual care, and that by a miraculous interposition also, to prevent the execution, and provided himself a ram as a vicarious substitute to supply the place of Isaac immediately. And the angel of the Most High, which would be Christ, called unto Abram and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, the child, neither do you anything unto him. For now I know that you fear for Ahijah, seeing you have not withheld thy son. You didn't hold back thy only son from me, your beloved son. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a ram caught in a thicket by his horns, by his head. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him for a burnt offering in the place of his son. Now I mean, then it's gonna go through a couple more like Jephthah and Judges 11:36 to 39, right, and other places to continue to show examples, right? But the Most High never required human sacrifice. So I want to get some more here. I'm gonna just jump around, right? I mean, it's so good. It's so good. Oh, we can show the difference here because some people will. Oh well, yeah, that happened. Let's read it. Uh, okay. So now, though Japhetha has by many been thought to have vowed to offer up his daughter and only child for a sacrifice, and that as bound on him upon supposition of his vow, his promise, by a divine law, Leviticus 27:28 to 29, of which opinion I was once myself, yet upon more mature consideration, I have for some time thought this to be a mistake, and that his vow extended only to her being devoted to serve the Most High at the tabernacle or elsewhere in the state of perpetual virginity, and that neither that the law did enjoin any human sacrifices, nor do we meet with any example of its execution in the sense afterwards. Philo never mentions any such law command, nor more than Josephus, and when Josephus thought that Jephthah had made such a vow and executed it, he is so far from hinting as it being done in compliance with any law of the Most High. It wasn't. That he expressly condemns him for it, as having acted contrary thereto, or in his own words. And you can go to 5:7:10, book 5, chapter 7, paragraph 10 to find that out in the Antiquity of the Jews. In his own words, as having offered an oblation neither conformable to the law nor acceptable to the Most High, nor weighing with himself what opinion the hearers would have of such a practice. Okay. Okay. Um, all right. So now that Isaac, being at this time according to Josephus, who is herein justly followed by Archbishop Usher, no less than 25 years of age, and Abraham being by consequence 125, it is not to be supposed that Abraham could bind Isaac in order to offer him in sacrifice, but by his own free consent, his will, which free consent of the party who is to suffer seems absolutely necessary in all such cases, and which free consent St. Clement, as well as Josephus, distinctly takes notice on this occasion. St. Clement describes it this: Isaac, being fully persuaded of what he knew was to come, cheerfully yielded himself, give himself up for a sacrifice. And for Josephus, after introducing Abraham in a pathic speech, laying before Isaac the divine command and encouraging him patiently and joyfully to submit to it, he tells us that Isaac very cheerfully considered, and then introduces him in a short but very pious answer, acquiescing in the proposal, and adds that he then immediately and readily went to the altar to be sacrificed. All right. Nor did Jephthah in Judges 11:36 to 37 perform his rash vow, whatever it were, till his daughter had given her consent, her own will to do it. It appears to me that Abraham never despaired entirely of the interposition of providence for the preservation of Isaac, although in obedience to the command he prepared to sacrifice him to the Most High. This seems to me in, intimated or intimate in Abraham's words to his servants on the third day when he was in sight of the mountain and on which he was to offer his son Isaac, we will go and worship, and we will come again to you. As also in his answer to his son when he asked, behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, the Most High will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. Both these passages look to me somewhat like such an expectation. However, it appears most evident that Abraham and I suppose Isaac also firmly believed that if God should permit Isaac to be actually killed as a sacrifice, he would certainly and speedily raise him again from the dead. This, to be sure, is supposed in the words already quoted, that both he and his son would go and worship and come again to his servants, and is clearly and justly collected from his history by the authority the author to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 17 and 19. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called, accounting or reasoning that the Most High was able to raise him from the dead, and his reasoning was at once very obvious and completely undeniable that since the Most High was truth itself and had over and over promised that he would multiply Abraham exceedingly, that he should be a father of many nations, and that his name should be no longer Abram but Abraham, because a father of many nations the Most High made him, that Sarai his wife should be called Sarah, and that he would bless her and give Abraham a son also of her, and that he would bless him, and she should become nations, and kings of people should be of her. Genesis 17, verse 2 to 4, and then 6 and 16. And that in Isaac should his seed be called. Genesis 21 and 12. And since withal it is here supposed that Isaac was to be killed as a sacrifice before he was married or had any child, and the Most High was for certain obliged by his promises in these circumstances to raise Isaac again from the dead. And this was an eminent instance of the faith whereby Abraham believed that the Most High, and it was imputed to him for righteousness. Genesis 15 and 6. If that God should permit Isaac, allow Isaac to be sacrificed, he would certainly and quickly raise him up again from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure, as the author to Hebrews 11 and 19 here justly observes. All right. Now, now I'm gonna jump because I want to get somewhere. Okay, I want to get somewhere. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do it here. Acts 2 and 22 to 32. And this at Jerusalem also, and that in the meantime, the Most High will accept of the sacrifices of rams and the like animals at the same city Jerusalem, that one cannot easily avoid the application. This seems the reason why Abraham was obliged to go to the land of Moriah or Jerusalem, and why it is noted that it was the third day, Genesis 22 and 2 and verse 4, that he came to the place, which implies that the return back after the slaying of the sacrifice would naturally be the third day also, and why the sacrifice was not Ishmael the son after the flesh only, but Isaac the son by promise, the beloved son of Abram, and why Isaac was styled the only son or only begotten son of Abram. Hebrews 11:17, the beloved son, though he had Ishmael besides also, and why Isaac himself was to carry the wood on which he was to be sacrificed. That's, Messiah carried his cross. Genesis 22:6, John 19:17, and why the place was no other than the land of Moriah or Vision, most probably a place where the Shishana or Messiah had been seen and the Most High by him worshipped, even before the days of Abraham, and were lately lived and perhaps now lived. Melchizedek, the grand type of the Messiah, who might then possibly be present at the sacrifice, and why this sacrifice was to be offered either on the mountain called afterwards distinctly Moriah, where the temple stood, and where all the Mosaic sacrifices were afterwards to be offered, as Josephus and the generally supposed, or perhaps as others supposed, that where the Messiah himself was to be offered, its neighbor mountain Calvary. This seems also the reason why the ram was substituted as a vicarious sacrifice instead of Isaac. These circumstances seem to me very peculiar and extraordinary, and to render the present hypothesis extremely probable. Nor perhaps did St. Clement mean anything else when, in his forecited passages, he says that Isaac was fully persuaded. He had his mind made up of what he knew was to come, and therefore cheerfully yielded up himself. He gave up himself for a sacrifice. Nor indeed does that name of this place, it says Jireh, so Ahia Jireh, right, which continued till the days of Moses and signified the Most High will see, right? Yajireh, or Yo Ye Yahuwah Jireh, right? Which continued till the days of Moses and signified God will see. That's what Yahuwah Jireh or Ahia Jireh means. Or rather, God will provide, seemed to be given it by Abraham. On any other record than that the Most High would there, in the fullness of time, provide himself a lamb. That lamb of the Most High in John 1:29, which was to take away the sin of the world for a burnt offering, right? Which is Yeshua, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, the Black Messiah. But now, if after all it be objected that how peculiar and how typical soever the circumstance of Abraham and Isaac might be in themselves, of which the heathens about them could have little notion, still such a powerful command to Abram for slaying his beloved son, his only Isaac, must, however, be a very ill example to the Gentile world, and that it probably did either on the first occasion, or at least greatly encourage their wicked practices in offering their child for sacrifice, for blood sacrifice to their idols, to their gods. I answer by the next consideration, that this objection is so far from the truth that God's public and miraculous prohibition of the execution of this command to Abraham, which command itself the Gentiles would not then at all be surprised at, because it was so like to their own usual practices to sacrifice, to do a blood sacrifice of their children or innocent men and women, as well as God's substitution of a vicarious oblation, right, seems to have been the very occasion of the immediate abolition of those impious sacrifices or practice rituals by Thutmosis the Pharaoh, or Ahmoses the Pharaoh, among the neighboring Egyptians, and of the substitution of more offensive ones there instead of them. Take the account of this oblation, abolishing, which we shall presently prove was about the time of Abraham's offering up his son Isaac. It was close to this time, as it preserved by Paraphyry from Manetho, the Egyptian historian, the famous Egyptian historian and chronologer, which is also cited by from Paraphyry and also by Eusebius and Theodoret. Almost, says Paraphyry, abolished the law for slaying of men at Heliopolis in Egypt. As Manetho bears witness, he has evidence in his book of Antiquity, History, and Piety. They were sacrificed, they were killed to Juno, they were given up to Juno, and were examined, as were the pure calves, the cows that were also sealed with them in their tomb. They were sacrificed three in a day, in whose place almost the Pharaoh commanded that men of war of the same number should be substituted. Now, I have lately shown that these Egyptians had Abraham in great veneration, and that all the wisdom of those Egyptians, in which Moses was afterwards learned, was derived, came from no other than from Abraham. Now, it appears evidently by the foresighted passage that the first abolishing of these human sacrifices and the substitution of waxen images, graven images, in their position, in their stead, and particularly at Heliopolis, in the northeast part of Egypt, in the neighborhood of Beersheba, in the south of Palestine, where Abraham now lived at the distance of about 120 miles only, was in those days, and by the order of Thutmose or Amos, Pharaoh, who was the first of the Egyptian kings, pharaohs, after the expulsion of the Phoenician shepherds, right? Um, after the expulsion of the Phoenician shepherds, right? Now, therefore, we are to inquire when this Thutmose or Ahmose lived, the Pharaoh lived, and compare his time with the time of the sacrifice of Isaac. Now, if we look into my chronology table published AD 1721, we shall find that the 125th year of Abraham, which is all in one, the 25th year of Isaac's, falls into AM 2573, or into the 13th year of Thutmose or Amos Pharaoh, which is the very middle of the 25-year reign. So that this abolishing of human sacrifice, killing humans and sacrificing babies in Egypt, and substitution of others in their room, seems to have been occasioned by the solemn prohibition of such a sacrifice in the case of Abraham, and by the following substitution of a ram in its stead, in its position, which record of this matter not only takes away the groundless suspicions of the moderns, but shows the great seasonableness of the divine prohibition of the execution of this command to Abram. It was right on time, as probably the direct reason of putting a stop to the barbarity of the Egyptians in offering human sacrifice, and that for many, if not for all, generations afterwards. So, Abraham, in doing what he did in faith, he was stopping human and blood sacrifice not, everywhere else, right? Just like the Messiah, he's stopping sacrificing, did away with the law of sacrificing. You don't have to sacrifice um, because he's our mediator and he was our sacrifice. All right. He went into the Holy of Holies and shed his blood for us. But yeah, the Most High never required us to do no damn human sacrificing. All right, to other deities, powers. He didn't require that. All right. I'm gonna give you a little extra. Tacitus accounts of the origin of the Jewish nation. All right, and of the particulars of the last Jewish war. But I'm just gonna read the origins of the Jewish nation. Right, from Tacitus. He's a heathen though. It says in the appendix dissertation 3, page 998, chapter 2, paragraph 1. It says, The History of the Jews, book 5. Since we are now going to relate the final period of this famous city, Jerusalem, it seems proper to give an account of its origin. All right. The tradition is that the Jews ran away from the island of Crete and settled themselves on the coast of Libya. And this at the time when Saturn was driven out of his kingdom by the power of Jupiter, Satan. An argument for it is fetched from their name. I'm going to read the note. Most of these stories are so entirely groundless and so contradictory to one another that they do not deserve a serious confutation. It is strange Tacitus could persuade himself this crudely to set them down, to write this down. This is what he wrote. An argument for it is fetched by their name. The mountain Ida is famous in Crete, and the neighboring inhabitants are named Idea, Idaei, Idea, Judea, which with a barbarous argument becomes the name of Judea, Jews. Okay, that's what he wrote. Some say they were a people that were very numerous in Egypt under the reign of Isis, and that the Egyptians got free from that burden by sending them into the adjacent countries under their captains Hierosolymus. Hierosolymus, and Judas. Hierosolumus and Judas. The greatest part say they were those Ethiopians from fear. I'm sorry. The greatest part they say they were those Ethiopians whom fear and hatred obliged to change their habitations, their living. In the reign of King Cephas. And let's read that note. That note says, one would wonder how Tacitus or any heathen could suppose the African Ethiopians under Cephas, the king, who are known to be blacks, could be the parents of the Jews who are known to be white. That's a good note. So the note, the one that made this notice says he wonders how Tacitus or a heathen could suppose to think the African Ethiopians under Cephas, who are known to be blacks, could be the parents of the Jews who are known to be whites. There are those, I'm going to go back to the test. There are those who declare that they were Assyrians, who wanting lands, who wanting or lacking lands, got together and obtained part of Egypt, and soon afterwards settled themselves in cities of their own, in the land of the Hebrews and the parts of Syria that lay nearest to them. There's a note on that too. Let's read it. This account comes nearest the truth, and this Tacitus might have from Josephus only disguised by himself. All right. So he's saying he might have used Josephus' words, or right, but he said that comes close to how the truth. It says, in the cities of their own, in the land of the Hebrews, and as the parts of Syria they lay nearest to them. Others pretend, they believe, their origin to be more eminent, and that the Solymi, 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 and a people celebrated in Homer's poems, and were the founders of this nation, of this people, and gave this their own name, Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Hierosolyma. Jerusalem. To the city which they built there. And there's a note there. This Tacitus might have out of Josephus' Antiquities 7:3. All right. All right. So, um, uh, that's all I got. I'm just sharing um, that. I thought that was something good. Um, hmm. And let me read this. It just says here, this is more from Tacitus. It says, as for Moses, in order to secure the nation firmly to himself, he ordained new rites, such as were contrary to those of other men. All things are with them profane, which with us are sacred. And again, those practices are allowed among them which are by us esteemed most abominable. They place the image of that animal in their most holy place, by whose indication it was that they had escaped their wandering condition and their thirst, which is a lie. They sacrifice rams by way of reproach to Jupiter, Satan, Hammon, and ox is also sacrificed, killed, which the Egyptians worship under the name of Apis. So he's the heathen, so he's talking against us, right? But I thought that was good that the Most High, when he did do these sacrifices, when Isaac was being sacrificed, he put a ram, and when we were doing all of our other sacrifices, we were putting the sacrifices of rams and cows and stuff like that, which was against the Egyptians, the heathen. We're killing their gods. Yeah. All praises to the Most High. That's all I wanted to say. I will read the notes on this. This is not true in general, but only so far that the Israelites were by circumcision and other rites to be kept separate from the wicked and idolatrous nations about them. That's correct. So, this strange story contradicts what the same Tacitus would tell us presently, that when Pompey went into the Holy of Holies, he found no image there. See, they a lot of lies, so you got to watch out when people try to use Tacitus. He was a heathen. But I will read something that he did attest to about our ancestors. Um, It says, many others agree that when once an infectious distemper was arisen in Egypt and made men's bodies impure, um, Bocorus, their king, went to the oracle of Jupiter, Satan, says Hammond, and begged he would grant him some relief against this evil, and that he would enjoin to pure his nation of them, and to banish this kind of men into other countries, as hateful to their gods, to the gods, that when he had sought for and gotten them all together, they were left in a vast desert, that thereupon he rest devoted themselves to weeping and inactivity. But one of them, those exiles, Moses by name, advised them to look for no help from any of the gods or from any of mankind, since they had been abandoned by both, but made them believe in him as a celestial leader, a heavenly leader. So in a note it says, this believing in Moses as a celestial leader seems a blind confession of Tacitus that Moshe, professed to have his laws from the Most High. See, the Most High make heathens confess. So Tacitus said he was a celestial leader from heaven, by whose help they had already gotten clear of their present miseries. They agreed to it, and though they were unfamiliar with everything, they began their journey at random. But nothing tired them so much as the want of water, and now they laid themselves down on the ground to a great extent, as just ready to die, when a herd of wild asses came from feeding and went to a rock overshadowed by a grove of trees. Moses followed them, as conjecturing that there was thereabout some grassy soil, and so he opened large sources of water for them. But when you read the note, it says, look, this looks like a plain confession of Tacitus the heathen, that Moses brought the Jews, the Israelites, water out of a rock in great plenty, which he might have from Josephus Antiquities, uh, book 3, chapter 1, paragraph 7. All right, and that was an ease to them. And when they had journeyed continually 6 entire days, and on the seventh day they drove out the inhabitants and obtained those lands wherein their city and temple were dedicated. Let me read that note real quick. It says, strange indeed that 6,000 men should travel above 200 miles over the deserts of Arabia, and in 6 days, and conquer Judea on the seventh. Because he's a heathen, he's talking junk, he's making it as a joke. Uh, and there's so many other things that we can. Well, I'll go to this too. It says it is generally supposed that they rest on the seventh day, because that day gave them the first rest from their labors. All right, let's look at the note. Josephus shows. Let me see. Yeah, Josephus shows the contrary as to the laws of Moses. Appian 2 and 22. Wait, no, that's not the right one. This note is, it is very strange that Tacitus should not know or confess that the Jews' seventh day and the seventh year of rest were in memory of the seventh or Sabbath day's rest. After the 6 days of creation, every Jew, as well as every Christian, could have informed him of those matters, right? We could have informed him. So it says, it is generally supposed that they rest on the seventh day, because the day gave them the first rest from their labors, besides which they are idle on every seventh year, as being with a lazy life. Others say that they do honor thereby to Saturn, which is a whole another lie. And it has notes there. He said a strange hypothesis of the origin of the Sabbatic year, and without all good foundation. Tacitus probably had never heard of the Jews' year of Jubilee, so he says nothing of it. You see, he be talking junk. And then it has another note. And as if Jews in those days of Moses or long before knew that the Greeks and Romans would long afterward call the seventh day of the week Saturn's day, which Dio observes was not so called in ancient time. And it is a question whether before the Jews fell into idolatry and they ever heard of such a star or god as Saturn. Then it has Amos 5:25, Acts 7:43. You know, uh, so yeah, they were making all kind of types of assumptions against our people, and it says with Saturn and who, as we have been informed, were the founders of this nation, or else it was because the star Saturn moves in the highest orbit and of the seven planets exerts the principal part of the energy whereby mankind are governed. And indeed, the most of the heavenly bodies exert their power and perform their courses according to the number seven. And it has a note that this is the note that the sun and moon and stars rule over the affairs of mankind was a heathen and not a Jewish notion. Neither Jews, Israelites, nor Christians were permitted to deal with astrology, though Tacitus seems to have been deep in it. See? Yeah, they always try to blame us with some crap. It says, they abstain from swine's flesh as a memorial of that miserable destruction which the mange and to which that creature is liable and brought on them, and with which they had been defiled. So let's see that note. It says, such memorials of what must have been very reproachful are strangers to the rest of mankind and without any probability. Yeah, we abstain from swine's flesh. And then it says here that they had endured a long famine, the Jews, and they attest still by their frequent fastings, and that they stole the fruits of the earth. And we have an argument from the bread of the Jews, which is unleavened. So there's two notes there. It says the Jews had put one solemn fast of old in the whole year, the great day of expiation, right? Um, and then you got um, the other note about the unleavened bread. Let's get that. Unleavened bread was only used at the Passover. See, but he'll accuse us of all kind of wickedness. So you got to watch Tacitus. That's all I'm, really showing. Watch Tacitus. Um, and so that's about it, y'all. Hope that was some good information. Um, I think I might go one more and showing how we are the promised seed. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So Galatians 3 and 29, it says, and if you be Christ, then are ye Abraham's seed, child, and heirs according to the promise. According to the promise. The promise in the old covenant and the promise in the new covenant pertains to the children of Israel. All right. and those that cleave to the children of Israel. And that's how all the nations are blessed. But we have promise of land that we need. Shalom.